Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, panelists.
Hi.
Bear with me while the specs are put on. This panel is Let's Talk, More Tools for an Inclusive Workforce. While total inclusion should be the goal of every employer, many fall short. This session will discover what the future of inclusivity in the workplace looks like. I'd like to welcome Jeff Ward, founder and CEO of Animikii out of Victoria, Mandy Price, co-founder and CEO of Kanarys, and last but not least, Rob Smith, founder and CEO of the Phluid Project. I thought what I'd do is give you each a few minutes to discuss issues that are important to you and with regard to this topic. So we can left to right. Jeff, if you'd like to start.
Okay. Anin Bojo, Jeff Ford, Indishnakas, Animikii, Kiwizan, Sindigo, Makwandodam. Hello, my name is Jeff Ward. I am Ojibwe and Métis. I'm originally from Manitoba, and I currently live on Lekwungen-speaking territory, colonially known as Victoria. And I'm from Bear Clan. I run an Indigenous-focused technology company based in Victoria, but we're in 5 provinces and territories in Canada. And we work at the intersection of technology and Indigenous-focused issues. And so for us, we also, we think about decolonizing tech and these kinds of things. And so being at an event like this is super interesting to us. But, really when you look at our business, get a little bit closer into the circle, we see how we also try to decolonize the workplace of how we work and how we work with the communities that we support and the Indigenous people and the BIPOC communities that we support. There's lots of, I know we're here to talk about tools, and so love to chat about some things that we're trying to integrate into our business that centers Indigenous worldview in the workplace and through an attempt to decolonize. So thank you, Miigwech.
Very good. Mandy?
Hi, I'm Mandy Price, CEO of Kanarys. And we are one of the workplace tools that we're going to talk about. I know we're going to give recommendations on others that organizations can use, but we're a technology company that helps organizations measure not just diversity, but equity, inclusion, and belonging. We started the company 5 years ago because we found that most organizations, if we talked to them around using DEIB data, that they would say they had it, and all they had was representation data. And then even with that, all they had was data around gender and race. And so when we would look more holistically around issues relating to LGBT or religion or caregivers or all the other various factors that make up someone's identity, organizations really struggled and didn't understand the demographics of their own workforce, understand what the challenges that their employees were having, and really, especially when it came to benchmarking, had no data whatsoever. And so what we do is help to provide that data so that they can, number one, understand how to measure equity, inclusion, and belonging, how to ensure that they are pulling in place a holistic database strategy so that they're not just guessing, that we're really using the data to drive our strategy forward and to understand how best we need to support our employees.
Right.
Great. Hey, folks. My name is Rob. I use he, they pronouns. I'm founder of Phluid. Phluid is the ability to navigate between 2 spaces easily, and the PH in front of Phluid recognizes balance. And so Phluid is a radically inclusive brand. It's in different segments. The first segment is retail and fashion, so working to degender fashion, and really between apparel, accessories, scents, continue to grow into new spaces. Phluid right now, in some ways, in 10,000 doors across the United States, which is pretty exciting, and launching into international companies. We do a lot of Pride product. We're a authentic queer company, but not queer exclusive. We're radically inclusive when it comes to race, gender, sexuality, body size, ability, age, faith, nationality, that there is a space for everyone at Phluid, and that's how we see it. There's also the Phluid Foundation, which is our nonprofit. The Collision has donated to the Phluid Foundation, which we're grateful for. We donate specifically to BIPOC-led trans organizations, grassroots organizations across the United States and soon internationally to really support the most marginalized, the queer community, which are basically BIPOC trans women, the life expectancy being 35 years old right now, and helping change that. And finally, the reason I'm here today is Get Phluid, gender expansive training. We help companies prepare for a gender expansive, gender expressive workforce and consumer base. We know that young people, especially Gen Zs, focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we try to create a more inclusive workspace so companies can retain and recruit and retain young people because they care about this. Thank you.
Fascinating from all three. And I do have some questions. And how can companies leverage virtual meeting and remote collaboration tools to support flexible work arrangements and accommodate diverse employee needs? You can start with that, if you could.
Sure. So I can kick us off unless. So when we really think around the pandemic and how it did shift to a more remote hybrid work environment, which is something that the disabled community had asked for decades, right? The ability to work remotely. We saw that it did not have a decrease in productivity. And so I think it's important, especially as we start to see many organizations, especially depending on their industry, start to move more into an office and requiring an office, to really think around the ramifications that it does have on your workforce, and ensuring that not just as we think about the disabled population, but we've seen that this has an extreme effect on caretakers as well. And so as we start to look at those increased caretaking responsibilities, be it individuals that have children or dependent care, being able to have that flexibility is really important. Now, even though we talk around kind of the ability to work remotely and using tools that allow you to do that, there are things that you should keep in mind because at the same time, there are barriers, right? So in the very early days of Zoom and Teams and the million other kind of tools out there, it really exposed the socioeconomic differences that exist within the workplace. And so then we've started to see the rise of the backgrounds and the virtual backgrounds. And so that's one of the things that we really encourage individuals to make sure they have within their workplace, that they are having those branded virtual backgrounds so people don't feel like they have to expose this very intimate part of themselves around their home. And then I think also as we think around the disabled community, a lot of times individuals may not have the closed captioning or other tools to ensure that individuals that have disabilities are able to ensure that they have that equal participation within the workplace. So those are some of the things that I would just kind of remind as we think of those virtual remote work opportunity or tools that are available.
Right.
I'd like to build on that. I mean, I love the idea of the virtual backgrounds because we started to see people sitting in bathrooms and in their beds or something like that. So making it accessible to people. Phluid's fully virtual. Get folks from all over the country and allow internationally to work with us. And we find we get great candidates and the best people by having a fully virtual work environment. One of the things that I love that I realized right away and leverage, especially with hiring diverse people, as a primarily cisgendered white man, these people, tend to look at the CEO and just kind of give the head of the table. And the first thing that I loved to appreciate was the democracy of the Zoom screen. Nobody got a bigger box, only the speakers were in the upper left corner. So I love to shut up sometimes and just put myself on mute and let my team talk. And not try to have the answers for everything, but serve up some questions and let the team come with their ideas. And we have, as a result of giving opportunity to diverse folks, including Cyrus, who's here right now, regardless of the gender, race, really just allowing folks to come with ideas and solutions, and just shutting myself up, which I'm gonna do right now. Pass over to you.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot through the pandemic of how to work and what's possible, how we can work collaboratively. And really, I think shining the light on was a very colonial system of driving to a different location to work, where you're traveling an hour there, an hour back, and sit in this sort of cubicle. Because Indigenous communities, we always work in community, kids and children and family and of all ages. Like everybody was involved in community life. And so for us, like we're fully remote. We're in 5 provinces and territories, and so it's been an amazing tool for. I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction to actually be in each other's homes and actually have presence with other families. Like, when there are kids that show up or babies, on the Zoom call, like that's for us. That's when the meeting stops and we're all focused on the kids, and we're like, sometimes putting on the filters to put the hats, include the kids in the conversation, because that's how we would work. That's in our cultural teachings. And we have some staff here, I think, that would attest to that in the audience, that we try to be very inclusive and welcoming, and also leaving people in choice as well. There's an amazing framework by Elaine Alec called it was an Indigenous matriarch, amazing thought leader, called Cultivating Safe Spaces. And we learned some of the principles. It comes from Indigenous teachings, and part of that is leaving people in choice. So if somebody does want to put on the Zoom background, or if somebody does want to not be on camera. I used to be one of these CEOs, the early days of online tools where, I would want people's cameras to be on. I would say, we need to be, present. But, we learned a lot. I learned a lot as a leader through the pandemic, and it's like, what? We need to leave people in choice and show up how they want to show up, and offer as much flexibility as we can, because that's the way we know how to, going back to traditional teachings and cultural teachings, and that's where it's at.
It's not just tools, it's strategies that companies need to have. So what are some effective strategies for addressing unconscious bias and promoting fair hiring practices? Rob, you want to take that and start with that?
Want to start with that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that we do practically when reviewing applications and things like that, where we'll have somebody mark out the names and as much personal identifying information. Yeah. But really just, it starts from how we welcome people to even apply. We talk about our values. We say, this are our values. Love is one of our values. So how do you connect with that? And so we really try to be relationships first when we're looking about bringing people on, and trying to see the whole person, not just for what's on their resume or what they technically, can check boxes to get the job, sort of thing. So we really, from a perspective of building relationships and just the opening of the door is so important. Where when we're going to be hiring, adding things like salary ranges on job descriptions and things like that, and thinking, we have just I'll stop there. But there's just a ton of things that we do even from when we say goodbye to folks. It's how do we be inclusive to the whole process?
Right.
We help companies help them hire more diverse people. But when it comes to Phluid, one of the things we love to do is be intentional about who we hire and make sure that we have a diverse workforce that's reflective of the community we serve. And one of my favorite tools is also to be very ask folks not just send their resumes, but to do a brief video to talk about who they are, what their passions are in life, and what they would want to do at Phluid. And what it does is lets me see the personality and if they would fit into the organization or not. Also filters out just a bunch of people throwing resumes at you, who's got the ambition and the willingness to take something and go forward with it, because we're a small organization. We don't need people on our team who are waiting for orders. We need somebody who's going to be self-sufficient and take care of themselves. So it really filters out tons of applicants. And then we get to see the person and go, wow, yes, we're looking for more gender diverse folks or folks who are racially diverse.
So I think Jeff and Rob put a lot of great points out there already. And, one of the things we really work with organizations to do is to make sure that they're intentional and understand that there are research and evidence-based best practices as we look at not just hiring, because I know you talked about hiring, but the entire employee life cycle on ways to mitigate that unconscious bias. With respect to the talent acquisition portion of it, there's things, and I know Jeff talked around, screening with names, screening with things that may introduce that bias. That's one of the things. It's also ensuring that you have a standardized scorecard for roles. Everyone has affinity bias. And so what happens is you are interview with someone, maybe they went to the same school that you went to, they're from the same hometown, and then all of a sudden the interview is taken up by talking around that, and you in the interview and say, oh my goodness, this person was fantastic, and you actually never got to talk into detail around their skills and abilities. So we see a lot of organizations moving towards skills-based hiring, but also ensuring that they have those best practices in place when we look at, is there a diverse group of individuals within the interview panel? Do we have individualized scorecards for the role? Are we ensuring, as well as we look at other elements of the employee life cycle, we're using those research best practices? I would say one of the things that Jeff hit on as well was he was talking about how we actually even pull together the job description. A lot of the research shows that even the words we use within that will affect the candidate pool. So we hear a lot of organizations and companies say this talent doesn't exist, or the pipeline isn't there, but we know because we're using antiquated systems and systems that we know have produced the kind of inequities we currently see, that we have to move away from the traditional way we've done these processes and make sure we're relying on that research-based practices.
Very good. We've got just about 2 minutes left, so I have one question. And we are at Collision, so why not? How can technology and digital platforms contribute to creating a more inclusive work environment? And you've got about 40 seconds each. No pressure.
I'll try to go quickly because I don't want to use all the time and make sure that everyone gets a chance. I think that technology platforms have the ability, obviously I have a technology platform to really increase inclusion and to help organizations think around the processes and the practices and really the challenges that their employees are having, because we have employees participate in the assessments. They're the only ones that can tell us around their inclusion and belonging. But I also think that technology has the ability to exacerbate some of the disparities that we see. So when we look at some of the existing AI tools, for example, there's been tools that have used to screen who's applied, and they look at this is the type of individuals we usually hire, and I won't name the company, but everyone's heard of it. What they saw is extreme bias on who was getting interviews, who was getting hired, because they were using their existing workforce and the most recent candidates they had hired, and we know that they have huge disparities within their workplace. So I think it's important that as we look at these tools, we think around how have we maybe not thought about the bias that was built into the tools and the systems that we're using on the technology front.
Great. Jeff?
She said everything. I think looking at the bias that is built in is exactly why we're doing what we're doing through the lens of Indigenous tech and trying to center Indigenous values into some of this tech so we can cause as little harm as we can. Ideally, we do no harm through technology. And we learn that through events like this that it's a tricky space to be in. And so, tech can be used for good and for not as good. So it's...
Absolutely.
I was going to say technology is only as good as if it's mixed with humanity, and the person receiving it is going to do something with it and make change happen.
And we didn't use the word Gen AI once, did we?
In that AI once. Yeah, the only one
that's
in all
$5
of Collision
AI
didn't talk about AI.
Thank you.